Hello, I'm Calamity, and welcome to the Into the 212th podcast, where we interview and pick the brains of the unit's members. Today I'm joined by Aden. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Aden, sometimes called Aden, sometimes called Aiden, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I'm Lieutenant of the 212th, head of Wraith Platoon alongside Biscuit. Uh yeah, that's pretty much it. I do tons of stuff here and there around the unit, but overall, I'm just here to have a fun time.
Well, I'm glad you could have joined us. So we've prepared a set of questions. If you can answer it for us, that'd be great, and we're just going to have a conversation and kind of flow around.
Yeah, sure thing.
So, how'd you get into the unit?
I actually joined with a group of friends back in, God, it was 2020 now. Yeah, it was the summer peak COVID and all that. Joined with a group of friends. We got referred by someone on the edge of the friend group. Really, we joined in all as a big group, and I think there's a couple of us that are still around today. But it was kind of a word of mouth kind of thing that we joined.
I mean, were you like one of those people who's like been in Arma for like years and years, or were you just like
No, no,
just getting
I
to it?
I had played Arma for maybe a couple hundred hours, if that. But overall, I was pretty new to Arma. I had been around the Star Wars universe for a while, and I've loved Star Wars, so that was the easy transition. But getting into Arma was the first time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like most people when they join units, they're more so looking for something different. I guess you were just looking for a Star Wars thing, huh?
Pretty much, yeah.
It says here you joined back in 2019, which is almost 5 years. What's like kept you here this whole time? I mean, that's a long time to be dedicated to a unit like this.
I mean, personally, I just enjoy hanging out. It's not something I have to do every day, which is one of the biggest things that's keeping me around. Is I can come and go really as I please, but it's once a week at the least I can do. Uh, you just show up once a week, have some fun, and be able to hang out. The biggest draw though is honestly just the people that are here, being able to hang out with the different people and friends uh, from my platoon, other platoons, other detachments, yada yada. Just the variety of people here is what's kept me the longest, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're one of. I mean, you're pretty high up on the command structure there. So I'm sure there's like a lot of things that you kind of had to deal with and everything like that, staying in the unit this long.
Uh, I mean, to some extent, yeah. I mean, there's of course a lot of things that come with the rank and the position that you have to deal with occasionally, but nothing too horrendous or serious, to be honest. I mean, there's been a couple things that I can't really go into too much detail about publicly, but I mean, nothing life changing or anything.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it is with these units. You stick in long enough, you have to deal with some pretty tough stuff, and I don't know. 5 years is a long time to be dedicated to a unit, and that's definitely very impressive.
Yeah, drama here and there, but overall, at the end of the day, it's it's a video game, and we're here to have fun. So that's how I view it.
Absolutely. It says here you're also in the modding department, so that's interesting. Can you like tell me about the modding department and what y'all do?
Yeah, so I am the head of the custom helmets team. So the team that designs or not designs technically, but textures and some partially designs all the custom helmets that we get for the unit members. Um, from conception of ideas, we will help people out with an idea, throw it on a helmet, through taking it through the texturing program, exporting that, and then throwing it into game. Uh, I'm more these days. I'm more of the back end sort of thing of taking it from most of the artists that we have and putting it into the in game while they go out and have fun doing the texturing and getting with people and making designs and all of that. I'm less more of the configuring and making new assets type of mod dev. I have some experience with that, not much, but I try to stay away from that as it's not my realm. I try to stick more to the helmet side.
And did you like get into that stuff like as you got into the unit, or was it something you were more experienced with beforehand?
I had some experience, and I say some with a very heavy air quote experience doing configuring and coding and all of that beforehand. However, when I first got into the unit, that was one of the first things I did. Really, pretty much, was I reached out to the previous helmet lead, Nuke. I was like, "Hey, this is something that I look at and I kind of like the idea of. I want to see, give it a shot, yada yada. And that was back when I was a little CT at the time, and I had to wait till I was SCT to give my chance in, and that's been what 4 years now that since doing that, so it's been a while.
So yeah, that just kind of drew you in. It was something that kind of popped out to you.
Yeah, because I liked the idea of all the fancy custom helmets, and especially as a brand new CT, seeing all the people with their designs, like going, "Ooh, I want to make my design. I want to make my design really cool." And then I just kind of had too much fun making my own helmets design. I was like, "Huh, this is a really cool idea. I want to, do it for other people too, and make more helmets."
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of also been into graphic design a little bit, but I've never thought about actually like putting the time in to go out there and like develop that skill set to be someone that does that. So
Hmm. It's a very interesting skill set because I wouldn't say I'm the most creative, to be honest. And I would also not say that I'm the most versed in substance painters, which is what we use to texture the helmets in a 3D model. But I know just enough to get around what we do, and I enjoy it. So that's what matters to me, really.
I mean, do y'all like because it must be a pretty heavy workload with kind of everyone coming up as SCTs and things like that, putting in their new helmets stuff. I mean, is it like a lot of work, or do y'all just really kind of power through it?
It depends on the person really and the helmet and the design they're looking for. A lot of the times it is rather simple as they're looking for a few things here and there. Some of the times we get some really intricate designs or some designs that don't really work well on the 3D plane. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, I like this idea," and it looks really cool in 2D. But and a lot of times 2D doesn't translate into 3D very well. So we have to work with people on making one that ends up looking good as the final product.
Yeah. So you're also a platoon lead with Wraith Platoon. Uh, how like what's that like? I mean, seems like a lot of responsibility in the unit to be a leader of the entire platoon there.
That was yeah, it's been gosh, what has been now? It's coming up on 2 years as being one of the leads of Wraith Platoon. Um, Started off as a normal trooper back in Spirit, way back when, as in Spirit 3. Eventually Shadow Platoon opened up and I took my shot, went over to be a team lead for Shadow Platoon. Eventually, after being a team lead for a while, a squad lead opened up in Wraith Platoon, so I jumped over to there. Ended up being Saturdays were my best day for my operations anyway, and I enjoyed the time slot for Wraith, so it worked perfectly for me. Was over in Wraith 1 for about a year or so, and then there was a shakeup in leadership structure, and there was a really big vacancy up in the leadership. So I kind of jumped forward in that as well, took that spot, and myself and Biscuit have been partners in crime ever since, really. On the actual leadership side of things, though, it's definitely an interesting. It's a different aspect of gameplay that I guess not a lot of people need to get to see. You get to see squad leading and maybe sometimes platoon leading in skirmishes as a normal member, but it's really not of the same caliber that a main op really gets to be. Coordinating different detachments, creating an op plan days in advance, having the billeted structure underneath you that you can rely on. You get to have this camaraderie with the squad leads and even the team leads and even down to the troopers sometimes. So it's definitely a really fun experience, and it's a different kind of gameplay where you have to shift back from running around and having fun, killing droids and beating people to death, and instead of more almost RTS like, where you're sitting back and commanding people and having squads go here, teams go here, and do this, and so like I said, more like a real time strategy game almost. We still get to have fun and go around and shoot things, and we're not going to completely take ourselves out of the fun, but overall we do have to step back quite a bit and make sure the platoon as a whole is still functioning and moving forward.
Yeah. Do you when you're thinking about like making these plans ahead of time, when you're formatting like who's going to be with proxy, who's going to be with lead, do you ever think about like what squads are best suited for these kind of scenarios? Like maybe one squad's really good at AT, one squad's really good at like I don't know, sniper fire, like something like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a mix between three things really. What the squads are best at, than what makes the most sense tactically. And then the third one, which in my opinion is arguably the most important, is just the rule of cool. At the end of the day, it's a video game, and we want to have fun with it. So I'm not going to do something that is tactically correct, but is just boring. So I'll try to do the best at balancing all three. But say for existence, Wraith 2 really likes to be rushing and kicking doors down. Same to an extent, Wraith 1. Wraith 3 likes to be really heavy weapons team. So there's, a balance and a structure with each of them, and there's things that they like to do, things that they're better at. But overall, I think most of them are pretty well rounded, and we don't have any that are like, you are designated as the heavy squad, period. We like to bounce back and forth, and we get to shift people around, being who gets to be with what platoon lead, yada yada. So overall, like I said, it's a mix of those three, and a lot of times I try to err towards what would be the most fun.
What about like with detachments? How do y'all really like think ahead and figure out what you're going to need for a certain op?
For the detachments, that's where most of the tactical thinking comes in. As I hate to say it a little bit, but with detachments, I don't really think too much of the rule of fun. I like to give the detachments a fun time, but at the end of the day, my priority is with the platoon of underneath me. If they're having a fun time, that's really my goal. If the detachments can come in and assist that, great, and I love that for them. But with the detachments, it's mostly a use of tactical of, if a detachment's not going to be useful in an operation, I'm probably not going to bring them. I'll usually, if I have extra slots, I'll try to bring detachments. But if it's an objective where Revenant isn't going to be doing much, or fire support group, I'm not really going to bring them because there's not really a point to, and I'll bring someone else who would enjoy the slot more. Or say I have an operation where I look at it and it's a very flat map, and I know it's going to be really good in really long sight ranges for Phantom. I'll bring them in.
Hmm. I mean, like, what is your favorite part about leading your platoon into battle, seeing them overcome challenges? Like, what's your favorite part about it?
I think typically my favorite part is the initial part of, sieging an objective or whatever the plan is, just seeing it first start to happen. 'Cause that's usually when it's the most structured, but also the most chaotic. Typically, like, say you're starting to charge at an objective, you throw smokes out, try to get as close to the objective as you can. People are dialed in, they're all in the zone, but at the same time, shit's going wild. You have tanks shooting at you, you have an entire objective shooting down at you, and everyone's trying to do their best just to survive. And I think those are the real raw and like the most fun points for me.
Yeah, I mean, you have been in the unit for quite a long time, and me being as someone who's pretty new in the unit, I've only been here for maybe 6, 8 months. But someone who's been in the unit for almost 5 years now, what are some things that you've seen over time that have changed that maybe think shouldn't have, or maybe things you want to see change in the future?
I mean, I've seen the unit grow from, at the time, two platoons, and other quite a few older heads. They'll be, back in my day, there was only one platoon, but I came in under two platoons, and now we've grown to four, and I mean, we have quite filled out those four platoons now. I don't think we're gonna have a fifth platoon anytime soon. I don't see a need for it. I think we're stabilized at four platoons pretty solidly, and we're enjoying it at the time being. So a lot of growth within the unit, really. And there are some changes that come with that. But overall, I think the unit has changed for a more positive route since I've been here. A lot of things have gotten better, a lot of things have gotten bigger, but I don't think I've really seen anything that I've been like, I don't really like that change specifically, or at least not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Is there anything that you can think of that you would want to change?
I mean, there's some spicy opinions I have with changing up how we do our gameplay, specifically the range of our engagements. I've tossed out a couple of ideas here and there to the people of the senior NCO Corps and about, of removing scopes from people, making marksmen more of a actual marksman, and having everyone else a bit shorter range, because right now our engagement range is pretty dang long, and a lot of our engagements seem to be sit up on a hill, shoot down an objective because we can, and they can't shoot us, where I really like that CQC and that assaulting type play style. So if I guess if I could change anything right off the bat, it would be, making our long range a bit weaker and forcing us to play a bit closer and more dangerously.
Yeah, speaking as a Zeus, I can confirm it's pretty irritating when y'all just sit on a hill and just don't go after the objective. So I do have a question here. This one, I guess this one's from MiMo here. Uh, what is the one thing you like to do when you're unconscious?
That's a good one. I will knock on wood. I'm not unconscious too often. I've been getting better at that, but usually when I'm unconscious, as I've recently been able to expand my setup. I'm not Nickx level of 7 monitors, but I'm at 3 now, so I'm able to, type out and do a couple of things while I'm unconscious. But typically, most of the time, I'll either, type out, watch a YouTube video, and listen to the chaos that's happening, or I'll, pull up my phone and just chill. But that's an interesting one. The thing I like to do most, actually, I think my favorite is going back and clipping what happened to make me go unconscious. I've got quite a few clips of just the goofiest scenarios of what happened to me, whether I explode or I get shot in the back by a rocket or I fell off a wall in the funniest way. Arma has a way of, making the most hilarious times where you get injured. And I think going back and clipping those and editing them is a really fun pastime as well.
I mean, have you ever thought of submitting any of those submissions to a media team?
Oh, I do a lot. I post them on my own YouTube channel. I submit them into the media team submission channel. I've had a couple of them featured in the monthly videos and all that. So I'm not too worried about it. I just a lot of the time I do it for my own enjoyment.
Well, I'm curious actually. We were talking about earlier stuff you'd like to see change, and you were talking about making engagements a little more closer and things like that. Is that something that you'd like to see Zeus's try a little harder to kind of force the unit into a CQB situation, or do you think it just really needs to be like an SOP change that we need to force the action from a guideline perspective?
I mean, I definitely do think it's a bit of give and take on both ends. One of the issues with sitting back and poking at an objective is a lot of times it's kind of the objective allows us to do that. Say it's just a fob with a bunch of walls and droids are up on the walls and we just shoot at the walls and then the objective is dead. Whereas instead of having, an objective with multiple layers to it or interiors to it, those are where it gets really fun. Um, like objectives that have buildings inside or high walls you can't see into the inside yet, or just a lot of times as well, just not putting bases next to giant hills. Um, that's at least on the Zeusing side. On the procedural side, I don't really see it as a way of changing SOP as to fixing that is more of just changing the gear that we have because a lot of our gear is really set up to be long range engagement. Our standard DC-15A is effective up to 500 meters normally, and if you're using it while laying down and prone and mounted up, you can easily be shooting up to 1,000 meters. And at that point, it's like it's getting a little ridiculous to the point where our engagements are so far away we don't have a lot of risk. Um, but yeah, I really enjoy the close combat ones, and like I said, it's a mix of both. Zeus's can do a little bit, but I think a lot of it is on just the gear we have is more catered to a long range play style.
Yeah, I mean, even in like Gen Tech and things like even like when our recruits are just coming through, we tell them that we tell them, hey man, you got a scope on your rifle, you can shoot somebody out at 1,000 yards if you're good enough. You know, I think it's definitely a culture thing that you could try to change, but I see that it's probably something that the Zeuses have to step up and make a change to.
Yeah, like I said, it's a mix of both. Like the town objectives specifically, they're kind of a cheap and easy way to go around that, where we have to go in and physically clear out a town. Kind of can't do that from afar, so you have to get CQB content and that. But I think it's when we start to go into the custom made compositions and fobs is where I think we could get a little more creativity in denying long range combat with those.
Is there any like innovative ops that you'd like to see? Like some like I know I saw this earlier on Discord. Someone said ship to ship battles. I don't know how that would work, but I'm curious if you have any ideas.
There, I could see that maybe working. I don't know about how an entire operation would be on purely ship clearing. Eventually, people, you know, ship clearing can be very taxing both mentally and physically on the people. So after X amount of time of clearing a ship, the rails start to come off a little. The wheels start to come off the rails a little bit. People start to get a little angry at each other sometimes of when they see people doing things they shouldn't, or people start to mess up on things, and people I've seen some tempers flare when people are doing things they're not really enjoying anymore. So, you got to find that balance of being able to do that. But I think the most innovative things I've seen recently were for one of Dongle's operations. It was kind of a innovation on both the Zeus side and the leading side, where we had a really interesting time where we took a vehicle underwater and sieged like an objective from the underwater as opposed to taking it normally. I thought that was a really cool way of dealing with the objective. And even Dongle afterwards was like, I built this in a specific way to give you this really cool entrance, and you even took it up a notch. And all the guys loved it. It was a really cool operation.
Yeah, think I'm not sure. I mean, as far as innovativeness in Arma 3, I feel like it's kind of reached almost a limit. Not really a limitation, but it's almost to the point where anything you do now is derivative, and it gets hard from a Zeus perspective to come up with creative ideas and like do new stuff.
To an extent, yeah, I agree with you. Especially for those of us in the unit that have been here for several years. But one of the things I try to remind myself is like the new guys that come in, the new CTs, SCTs, even VCTs sometimes. These are all still things that are new to them. So things that are boring to me are still brand new and exciting to these new guys. Things that they haven't seen before. Just because I've seen them 15 times before because I've been here for 4 years doesn't mean that they haven't that they've seen it before and they're not having a fun time. So a lot of times I have to, take a step back and remind myself, hey, I've been here because I've been here for a while, and that's just kind of the name of the game. But these new guys are having a great time still.
That is actually a question I got. Do you think that the 212th can make a transition to, like, let's say Arma 4 when that comes out, which I know they're supposed to be in development right now. Do you think we could make a jump from a whole new game?
I think it's definitely possible to. It definitely won't happen quickly. I don't think it's not going to be something that happens probably within the first 6 months of the game coming out. We There are a lot of things that we have put into back end infrastructure work of making Arma 3 work, and there's a lot of mods and things that we have curated to be our play style, and that would have to be imported over into Arma 4. And I don't see that happening too quickly. And the other thing as well is then getting all the player base to move over into Arma 4, a brand new game. We would probably get some new members. And we would probably lose a decent amount of old members that don't want to buy a new game, that they stick here with us because they have the game already. So it would definitely be a very large transition, and it would be something we do probably over the course of 6 months, or if not a year at most. That I'm thinking of, but it's not something I don't see not happening.
Well, I've gone through all my questions. Do you have any questions for me or anything you want to say?
I don't really have anything too specific, but I do have. I guess it's less of a question for you specifically, but I guess for me, it team as whole. But what are some big projects that you guys have been working on that you are looking forward to?
Oh man, that's a great question, man. So right now, I believe what we're working on, like obviously we're working on the podcast. Yeah, I'm sure you're aware of that. Uh, but we also, let's see here real quick. Let me check. We also have like war correspondence and things like that are in the works. Obviously, I can't go into too much detail about it.
Yeah, you can't leak anything,
Yeah,
but
I can't leak anything, but I can say that we do have projects that are definitely in the works. I've got a whole list here that I'm looking at right now. So definitely keep an eye out on it. Things are coming, you know. And when you see the media team guys in the unit, make sure you say like thank you to them, like let them know that what they're doing, y'all see it, because they put a lot of work into it, and they don't always get the credit that they deserve. So please, like, let them know that what they're doing matters.
Yeah. It's like one of my favorite things to do, what I found recently, is when we do have the media team releases, even if it's just the funny clips of the month type things, when they do the premieres, just get in a group of channel with like 10, 15 other people in the team speak and just watching it as it premieres live. That's been a really fun thing to do. So
Yeah, and it brings the whole unit together, because I feel like sometimes we separate into our different platoons and we don't really bridge that gap. We become different sections of the unit, and I feel like media team helps bridge that gap between us.
yeah, I can see that as well. But yeah, I think that covers all. That's the only one I really had.
Okay, you want to shout out your YouTube channel, anything like that?
I mean, I guess it's not really much other than just a conglomerate collection of clips and things of ways I die or funny things I see in Arma. It's shifting with 3Gs. It's pretty simple, easy to find, but most of the time I just upload dumb things I see in Arma. It's not really anything I'm taking too seriously, so I don't really need anyone to go out and subscribe or anything like that. But if you want to see the dumb things the clips I've collected, some cash moments from 4 years ago, back when I first joined the unit as well. There's a whole lot of different clips from different periods of time in there.
Well, it does sound interesting. I'll probably give it a look. But thank you, Aden slash Aden. Thank you for coming in and showing up to the podcast and having a good conversation with us. Thank you for the viewers for watching. Make sure y'all stay tuned. We will be coming out with more episodes for the 212th podcast. And that'll be the end of today's episode. Thank y'all for watching.